Okay, just for the records, can you state your name and what you do?
Yeah. Jared Peterson is my name, and I teach business management courses and oversee IBC.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I have 10 questions. It
Okay.
should take about half an hour.
Okay.
And my hope is that you think about the best employees or coworkers that you've had, and you kind of think of them or yourself, like if you have little nuggets of things.
Yeah.
And so we'll go through the different stages: the finding, the interview, the trial stage, and the promotional stage. Okay?
Okay.
All right. When you think about the best people your company has hired, how were they first discovered and noticed?
How were they first discovered and noticed? Many, from where I came from, most of our folks that we discovered and noticed came through referrals. So we would clearly articulate what we were looking for, and then our employees would go find individuals who fit what we were looking for. And so I think we were 60 to almost 70% of all of our new hires came through referrals from our own employees.
So your employees would go headhunt for you.
Exactly right. So so it was awesome, right? Made our recruiting process a little easier, but our employees knew what the standards were, and they would go mine their own networks to help us find great people. We did find people outside of that. Some of that was through recruiting. We came here to BYU, Idaho. We went to the Utah Valley. We recruited a lot of students out of college, right? And noticed them a lot. You have your standard resumes and stuff like that, but there was usually something that caused them to stand out from something they had accomplished. And we were looking for very specific skill sets.
Okay.
And we can probably get into that a little bit. But we noticed skill sets that help them stand out, or they had done something difficult, whether it be in academic life or in life in general. Where we were looked for things that they had done something hard, right, and had succeeded through that hard, whatever it was.
Okay, I like that. And if you think of like specific stories and stuff too, you're like, oh, there's this one guy. Feel free to share those. All right. So when you're sorting through applications, what makes one person stand out versus somebody else when they look on paper qualified?
Yeah. So we looked again for some things that accomplishments that were difficult, right?
Okay.
And it could be again from academic. They took a really difficult class that we were aware of, or they graduated from a program that we were aware of that was difficult, or like they had done something difficult in their life, like ran a marathon. That takes discipline, that takes dedication, that takes some grit to do something hard like that, right? So we would look for those types of things. Also, we looked for things that would tie to our industry, and I was in healthcare IT. So if somebody had something healthcare related or IT related that would fit, right? We were looking for those things to stand out to us. We didn't really pay attention to where they went to school per se, or some of those things. It was more of, can you demonstrate that you've done something hard or unique that then would cause us to want to have a conversation to find out more.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Because when I was in student leadership here, we had recruiters come and they said, all right, it's good that you got a degree, but what else? Like, what drives you forward? And so that it makes sense that it goes to finding a job too.
Yep.
Okay. In the interview process, what qualities or skills make someone stand out during the initial hiring process beyond the resume or formal qualifications?
Yeah, so in our process, we were pretty rigorous in our process. So we would look for things that would help us understand their soft skills as well as their values. So we did a lot of research behind this. So for example, we found out through a lot of trial and error and then just research that there were certain questions we could ask to assess somebody's humility. So for example, if I asked the question, if you were interviewing, I'd ask you the question, tell me about a time when you mentored somebody and how did you help that individual go from point A to point B, right? You help them then progress, right? And their answer was quite telling. We found that a high percentage of respondents, if they answered with a response that was more focused on the individual they mentored and what that individual did and how they were just kind of a guide on the side, their humility was high.
Really?
If they answered and talked more about themselves and what they did to help the candidate move forward, there was a high probability that their humility was low.
Huh.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
So we would hire for that. We would look for those types of things. We also did something where, so there's 3 key skill sets that we found that were highly valuable, and I believe these skill sets are highly valuable across any industry.
Okay.
If you can take information and analyze it, whether it be quantitative or qualitative, you can look at data and then identify a story or a trend or what's happening with that data. And then you're able to, that's the first skill.
Yeah,
is
I like that.
Research analysis, right? And identify trends and items that are of significant in that data. And then the second skill is I can then create some type of written report or result of that, right? So I can communicate, we call them executive briefs, or you might say an infographic, right? Some way to take a lot of information, simplify it, and highlight important things that are happening, right? And that was more of a written skill, creative writing or design type skill. Okay. That was skill number 2. Skill number 3 was I can now articulate it. I can communicate with you and say, here's what I found and here's why it's important. Here's what matters to you. And here's how you need to think about it, right? So that was the third skill, is presentation, right? Verbalize. And we call this the trifecta of our analysts, right? Mm-hmm. If we found somebody that had those 3 skills, like we were ready to, and they had the soft skills around it of integrity and honesty, humility, those types of things. That was like an ideal candidate for us. And so we would do things to test in the interview process to vet out this skill set. And sometimes it was very evident that they didn't have it, or very evident that, oh, wow, there's potential here, right? And so we would design our hiring process for many of our roles, not all of them, but many of our roles were designed to help us identify those 3 skill sets, strengths in those 3 skill sets, and then identify their soft skills. Wow. Can they communicate well? Do they have integrity? Can they be trusted? Right. And one of the things for trust, right? We would ask some questions, but also we would basically further on in the interview process before we would send them out with a group of our employees to have lunch. 3 or 4 employees, go have lunch with them, right? And it was a way just to say, okay, get a feel of are they the same person with some of the front end folks as they are with maybe the HR or the executive who's trying to hire them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that their integrity on how they acted in those 3 settings was important for us to know and understand.
That's interesting.
We had talked about maybe having them interview with like our customers. We had a board that was made up of our customers. We dabbled in the idea of some of our senior level folks interviewing with our customers and getting their take, but we never did it. Yeah. But we were very intentional about how we hired and looked for those skill sets.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. And it's interesting because that's not the first time I've heard that. But I'd be interested, do you still have like those questions?
Yeah, I could probably still mine them for us, yeah.
Could you? Because that would be really cool to be part of my research.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll send you an email to request those.
Yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We may have touched on some of these, but what are the most common reasons someone gets hired when there are multiple qualified candidates? I think you answered that.
Maybe I could throw one thing.
Yeah.
We would look at if we had candidates that are very equal on things, right? Mm-hmm. Especially through our process, we would go back to, okay, do they have an MBA or not? Do they have some of those other things that might again, demonstrate I've done something hard, right? Because sometimes we get people on paper, one has an MBA, one doesn't, but man, they look very similar as candidates. We'd send them through the process. Wow, these guys are really similar. Okay, is there anything else that differentiates them that demonstrates, hey, they've done something? Then further education was a door opener for them.
I see.
If that makes sense.
No, that's good. In fact, I'm glad we didn't skip over that because that's pretty important. It's like, all right, if they're both qualified head to head, then you go back to the nitty gritty. It's like, oh yeah, better education, better experience. Mm-hmm. Good.
Whether it's an education, like more education or a certificate, again, something that demonstrates they've done something that requires some discipline, some effort, and even some of their resources, right? Whether it be I have to pay for tuition or whatever, right? That they've demonstrated a willingness to go do that.
Oh, interesting. Good. Are there any warning signs or gaps that makes you hesitant to hire? Like if they show some sort of, what are those? Even when they appear qualified on paper, when you
so there's some things we that were high triggers for us, right? Okay. So I mentioned the humility thing, right? How they answered that question. Yeah. Another one was we would intentionally put many of our hires through a process to push their knowledge, their levels of knowledge. Okay. One thing we wanted to see is, would they be willing to say, I don't know? Because a lot of times you feel the pressure that I have to give an answer and respond, and sometimes people just make things up. And that goes back to their integrity, right? And honesty. And so we would intentionally push them beyond their knowledge. And this came out a lot when we were testing those 3 skills. Because we would give them a data set to analyze, and then we would start pushing them. And we knew that there were certain questions we would ask that the data did not have answers to. And we want to see, would they be willing to say, I don't know?
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
No,
So that was a big trigger for us. If you weren't willing to say I don't know and you started making things up, or even I don't know, some people feel like that's a bad answer. Yeah. If they said, I don't know, but here's how I go about figuring it out, right? That's a great answer.
Problem solving skills.
Right? It's like, okay, I'm willing to think through this, even though I don't know. Here's my way of thinking, right? Here's how would I explore this. But some people sometimes forget to couch it with, here's how I'd go figure this out. And they might do it mentally, but they just jump to some type of information. So being willing to volunteer, be vulnerable with their lack of understanding or knowledge was an important one for us. Yeah. Because that vulnerability, again, speaks to humility. I'm willing to say I don't know. And I'm willing to look like I don't have all the answers. Because some people really struggle with that, especially in the interview process. So that's something that we keyed off on quite a bit.
Interesting. I really like this. I mean, it would have been tough to interview that, but
yes, I look back and just because I helped start the company and everything, I look back and I'm like, man, this would be really hard to interview through, right? I was like, would they even hire me? Would I hire myself?
I've asked that when I'm interviewing tutors for the presentation practice, and I was like, all right, would I hire myself? And but that's part of it. It's like, all right, what did they do when their back's against the wall? Yep. And
another one is one of the things we looked for, and again, this is maybe some of our higher level folks, their willingness to initiate some conflict. Okay. If that makes sense. Yeah. So when we talk about communication, sometimes I think one of the parts we forget is effective leaders and effective employees need to kind of put their necks out there and initiate conflict. That doesn't mean create contention. Yeah. It means there's a problem. I'm willing to point it out. Mm-hmm. And so in some of our data sets, we would plant errors in there. If that makes sense. Yeah. No, and are they willing to call out the error and say, hey, your data's wrong? That would tell us something, right? Yeah. Are they willing to initiate some conflict? And in some way, they didn't have to come out and say, oh, your data set's wrong and do it in an arrogant way. It's more of, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but it seems like there's an error in your data, right? Yeah. Like any way they did it, are they willing to point it out and identify an issue that needs to be solved or addressed? And so when we gave them the data set, it would be interesting to see, as they were, because they had a certain amount of time that they had to put a presentation together based upon their analysis. It was interesting. Would they call us? There was usually 48 hours they had, right? We'd give them the data set, and 48 hours later they'd come in and present to us. In that 48-hour time frame, would they ever call, email, message, text, whatever, having identified the error and want it to get resolved? Or would they wait till the day of the presentation to do it? Or would they even notice or mention it at all?
That's interesting.
Right. So there are things, again, not to be dubious or anything, but we wanted just to see how they would react to certain situations, right? Because would we find errors in our data? All the time. You got to be willing to call it out and say, "Ooh, there's a problem here. We got to go fix this," right?
Yeah.
Or at least go on some type of expedition, try to figure out what happened that created this problem.
Right. And even if they didn't reach out to you, did they look and study other resources and find?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Right. And so we would sometime in the interview process, if they didn't call it up before, say, "Hey, did you notice that there was an error here?" And that would be telling, "Oh no, I didn't notice." That's one issue, right? Of just not being thorough in the data, which would speak to their, how detail oriented are they potentially. If they said yes, but I didn't do anything about it, that says something.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw something and I tried to fix it, or I tried to identify an issue, or I tried to, I looked at other resources, things like that. So just, again, problem solving. What do you do about it? But the piece that we were very interested in, would they identify the problem and then reach out, right? And initiate some type of problem resolution, right? To us directly. Because that can be hard. Especially when you're interviewing, to say, "Hey, there's something wrong here. It doesn't seem like it's," because that's risky.
Yeah.
But we would applaud that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's risky when you're like, "All right, my future's on the line. Do I really want to point this out or not?"
Exactly
it's
right.
Like, oh, that's actually part of the test.
Yes.
It reminds me of that professor says the final exam is in another building, and then across the way they're having to serve people on who decides to not.
Yep. But the quality of our data, because we were a research and consulting company, and the quality of our data was super important, right? And we wanted people willing to go through the data, be meticulous, point out errors, find out what was wrong, that type of stuff.
That's neat. Okay, I lost my paper. Okay. Okay, so this is the trial period now. So now you've hired them.
Yep.
After someone is hired, what qualities or behaviors help them become strong, long-term fits for the workforce?
Yeah. So our onboarding and training process was quite meticulous. Okay. We anywhere from 2 months to 6 months was how much time we would spend with them, getting them up to speed and everything. So, initiative, right? Do they take initiative? Are they proactive? Right? It was one big one, right? And in our training program, we had, let's go with the 2-month version, right? We had a set of tasks that they needed to accomplish on their own, and then some tasks that they accomplished with their manager. Mm-hmm. And it was always something we watched for is how quickly are they progressing through these individual tasks, right? Some of it would be reading a book. We had a couple of books we asked them to read as part of the onboarding, right? That help kind of help them understand culture, things like that.
Yeah.
And other tasks in just meeting people, right? One of the tasks was go introduce yourself to these individuals, right? And have a conversation and learn about what they do in their role. Those types of things, right, helped us see, okay, what type of initiatives is this person willing to take?
Okay.
So that's something we looked for, right? The initiative. Just understanding, seeking to understand. So asking good questions, clarifying. If we hired somebody and they never asked questions, that was a red flag for us. Because we didn't believe our training was perfect.
Yeah.
And we knew that there are things that they needed to learn and absorb, right? And so if they never ask questions, we're like, okay, what's going on here? Like, this isn't normal, right? So people who have initiative and are inquisitive and want to understand how things work, right? How things are processes and systems, that's something we would watch out for too. So little signals, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And then we would keep on assessing those 3 key skills, right? Of can they look at information, data, tell a story based upon that, either written or verbally. Mm-hmm. And then we would always we always had an eye on our soft skills.
Okay, so that's an overarching theme.
Yeah.
Across the soft skills and
yes.
the 3 data things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh. So that was something during the first, and we call it it was a probation period, right? So that 2 months or 6 months, depending upon the role and how complex it was, we were constantly watching those things.
Okay. Well, during this probation period, what characteristics or skills separated employees who simply performed their job versus those that became strong candidates for promotion?
Usually the ones that became strong candidates for promotion did a couple of things that we observed. One is they would always be pushing to, or they had suggestions or ideas on how to make the process better.
Okay.
So when I trained them, I invited all of our new hires. I was over the training program. That's why I know a lot of this.
So this is great. This is perfect.
So I told them, cook with the recipe once and then figure out how to improve it. Because I said, I built this and we've had other people contribute to it, but you can help us make it better. You have experiences, knowledge, understanding that we could totally make this process better, right? So I would be very inviting to that. And those who took that invitation and really would think about the process that we had, the processes, I should say, and who would, hey, I have an idea. What about this? Have you considered that, right? Even if their idea wasn't like great, or if we tried it before, the fact that they're thinking through it and wanting to improve it said something about their initiative and just how they thought about problem solving and stuff like that. So that's something that we would watch for. Are they willing to speak up and suggest ideas and process improvement and things like that? Again, we look at those who are able to quickly, the speed at which they're able to digest information and find trends and things, and then share it was something else that we looked for. Those who had a skill set who could work faster, more efficiently, is something we kept an eye on. And those people all the time didn't make the best managers. We would move them up in a technical skill.
Okay.
But then we also looked for people, and this is something we did later in my tenure at our company, just understanding that sometimes the best performers don't make the best managers. So we were looking for effective managers, right? Can you understand the big picture? Do you understand strategy? Can you communicate those things really well to people, right? And when you're a performer and you transition to a manager, the outcomes or the results you're going for are different, and are you okay with that? So for example, when I'm a salesperson, right, and I get very motivated by selling, and I get rewarded with commissions.
Yeah.
Well, when you're to a management role, right, now it's not your personal success, it's the team's success. Can you make that transition? Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
And so we would look for just personalities who are okay with the group being rewarded rather than the individual being rewarded. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And that would get kind of hard sometimes and a little nuanced, but we were looking for people who could make that transition to go from what motivates me is my individual performance to what motivates me is the performance of my team and helping my team perform at a high level.
I like that. Yeah, that transition is interesting, that change that they have to deal with.
And so there's skills, there's soft skills and some other technical skills that make that happen, right? And so we would watch for those types of things and say, oh, okay, let's give this person opportunities to go manage a project, to go present in a certain way depending upon where their strengths lie. And we tried to create a couple different promotional paths, right? I can be promoted in a management perspective, or I have technical skill and I want to get promoted that way.
Okay.
Right, so I am a really good consultant with the data. I can tell a great story. I can go into an executive boardroom and present that information and get leaders to go, aha, you just told me something new, and I've got to incorporate that into my business. And that's one of the things the big thing on our technical, our technically trained folks was, can they create aha moments for our customers, right? So with data and information and our consulting, can they find something and then go share it and present it where the CEO of a big company goes, oh, I didn't understand that, or I didn't know that. Great, I'm going to take that information and do something about it, act differently. And so those are kind of the two tracks we tried to get people going down a little bit.
Good, interesting. Just understanding them to know that, all right, they're going to be promoted within the technical side or the managerial side, and just kind of filling them out. Mm-hmm. So probably, and this isn't about like, how did you manage them, but it's really interesting to see you kind of had to have that interpersonal and observational skills just to help them go that way. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And sometimes they would be willing to, and other times it's like, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Okay, well, if you want to go down this path, let's talk about the skill set you need to develop to be successful in that area, right? Yeah. And sometimes, and those are hard conversations to have sometimes, but I would applaud people who are like, man, I want to try this. Okay, let's help you figure out how to be a better manager. Okay, how you got to interact with people a little bit differently, right? Be able to have crucial conversations and hold people accountable, right? And versus, oh, you don't have the technical skill set. Well, let's get the training you might need, right? And let's give you some tools, and trying to identify the can't versus won't, right?
Oh, I like that.
I can, as a manager, I can help people with the can'ts, right? I can give them tools, training, and give them opportunities to develop skill sets and things, and turn the can't into a can. A won't's different, right? If I have somebody who just won't, I don't want to learn how to do this. I don't want to learn how to manage people effectively, or I don't want to master a skill set or a knowledge base. Okay, well, I can't do much with that.
Right. It's like now you have to work around them. And
exactly right. And working around people is never fun.
No. Oh, interesting. All right, well, let's get into the long-term stage of the promotional stage where you have them on the bus, you want to keep them on the bus. Yeah. What qualities and behaviors or skill gaps prevent people from being promoted even when they are technically good at their job? Yeah. And then I think you answered it with the can't versus won't. But a little bit. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah. So we had people who were good at what they did, but we didn't promote them. One was the can't versus won't. Like, hey, I don't want to do certain things, so therefore, okay, we're not going to promote you. Two, there was. This speaks to the soft skills side, right? Mm-hmm. There was something about your soft skills that culturally we did not want to perpetuate perpetuate, but also kind of by promoting you, we're condoning your poor behavior. Right. Right. So I can see that. For example, we had people a couple of individuals who didn't feel too bad about blowing up at one of their coworkers, right? Who would just kind of go and just at times just get mad and upset, and we're like, okay, we don't want to. And they were good salespeople, or they were good analysts or consultants, but that behavior, right? We weren't going to reward with promotion, right? And so there are certain soft skills that we're not going to condone that, and sometimes it was. Okay, they're good enough, and it's not bad enough that we're going to let them go. But a couple of those turned into scenarios where they just kept doing it over again. So instead of not being promoted, now we're discussing, okay, you're disrupting the culture so much, we've probably got to let you go. Yeah. And so we did a lot to protect the culture, and we were very careful about those who we promoted, that they were willing to promote and exemplify the culture we wanted. So that would be in soft skills and values and things like that. So those are things we look for.
Oh, interesting.
Probably what else could prevent them? I think, unfortunately, there were some people who that trifecta, that skill set, right? They would run into some limitations, right? And that skill set would keep them from being promoted. or at least given opportunities to work with bigger clients, things like that, right? Until they could prove them. And some people just, their skill set isn't such that they can do it as effectively as needed to be done.
Yeah.
And then we didn't let them go. There weren't as many opportunities made available to them.
Yeah.
Until they could demonstrate. We would give them opportunities, but those typically were opportunities within their own role, and not promotions, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, we had some analysts, right? We promoted one to lead expansion into a country, right? Because we started going international, and they had a skill set and a soft skills that we wanted to promote and push. And then you had a peer who was very similar to them, but their skill set was lacking. So, okay, we'll give you opportunities in your current role to do something a little bit unique to demonstrate maybe I can take on that promotion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we try and find opportunities to do that where they can demonstrate, okay, yes, I can do that, or okay, you still need to work, right? So those are things that we tried to do as well to help with promotion, but also those are things that kept people from getting promoted.
I like that. Mostly because it just tells me you had a good company that it's just like was there for the people and stuff. So that's neat. All right. 2 more questions.
Yeah.
When you think about people who are most successful in your organization or industry, what qualities, characteristics, or skills do they consistently demonstrate?
Okay. Good listeners.
Okay.
Like they listen, they take in information, right? We had a CEO that we worked with for another company, and she would always, one of her signs on the wall was, when you come to a meeting, don't forget to inhale and exhale, right? And the inhale was take information in, listen, but then contribute and participate, right? If you're going to a meeting, engage, participate, and if you're not listening or you're not saying anything, then why are you here?
Yeah.
Right. So that's something that we were always looking for, right? And we would invite and train on, right? If you're in a room, engage, right? So listen, right? That was an important part of what we did, because so much of what we did was just dependent upon us listening, right? And listening not only to what's being said, but what you observe and what you read, right? All those things, just taking in information and then being able to go, okay, based upon this information that I'm taking in, okay, how can I contribute and move the discussion forward?
Oh, interesting. Okay, last question. This is you thinking back to your 17-year-old self. If you were advising your 17-year-old self who wants to be hired, succeed, and eventually be promoted, what would you tell yourself to develop first, and why?
Ooh. The first one?
The starting point.
See, there's soft skills and there's technical skills, right?
Yeah.
On the technical side, it'd be start developing the skill to like be able to understand what's happening with information, right? Be able to take in it, soak in information, and go, oh, here's what's happening, here's what's going on, right? That skill is super valuable. And the other one I would tell myself on the soft skill side would be emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Is being able to understand how my emotions impact others and how others are feeling and how their emotions are impacting the group, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, those are 2 big ones, and I have to be careful because hard work is probably one of the things you have to develop earliest in life, and if you don't have that, like just being able to work hard and grind through things, right? I guess I kind of learned that because I had a dad who was in construction and played sports.
Yeah.
You probably experienced some of that, right?
Yeah.
You just learn to work hard, and that's, Patrick Lencioni talks about that's one of the skills that if you don't develop early, it's hard to develop later in life. Just a solid work ethic. But for me, the one that I lacked the most was emotional intelligence coming out of school. I wish I would have understood that better and developed that skill just to, okay, as an athlete, right, you come with this kind of, I'm going to beat you, and defensiveness can be part of that, right? And understanding, okay, my emotions, when I get defensive or if I get intense, how does that impact the group, right?
Yeah.
Does it shut people down? Does it invite participation that's more defensive and anger, and just being aware?
Oh, I like that.
So, I don't know, those are a couple things.
Good.
Have you read Lencioni's The Ideal Team Player?
No, I need to now.
Yeah, so it's a good book, and it talks about being hungry, which is hard work, being humble, which we talked about, and being smart. And the smart is emotional intelligence, not
intellectual.
Not intellectual. It's this emotional intelligence thing, right? And he talks about those three things being what are create an ideal team player.
Okay. No, I'll have to do that as part of my research because I'm all about good books.
Yeah.
Good to Great. Man's Search for Meaning. Just like all this good stuff.
Yeah. So that's one that really resonated with me when I was, I think it was halfway through. I think I found that one halfway through my tenure at my company, and we started utilizing that quite a bit because it fit in our values, right, in our culture of especially the humility and hard work components.
Yeah.
And this emotional intelligence, when you're consulting and you're in a group of with executives, understanding how your emotions and the emotions of the group impact, and being able to say, oh, okay, this person's feeling a little uptight, that person's a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
My own anxiety, how's it? Just that's important to
Being
understand.
able to read the room and doing things that's not going to put people in a really binding situation where they're
and informing what you say, right? Because we would have information that was pretty hard to hear sometimes as a consultant.
Vital, though.
Yeah. So how do I present it in a way that doesn't cause somebody who's already on edge to blow up at me and stop listening, but still deliver a message that will resonate, right? Yeah. And depending upon how somebody's feeling, I might decide, I'm going to delay putting this out there, or I'm going to do it in a softer way and not be as direct or whatever, right? Depending upon how they're feeling, how I'm feeling, just how the group is responding to what we're doing.
Interesting.
Just an important skill to have.
That's awesome.
I wish I could say that I'm really good at it, but I'm still working on it.
But that's life, right?
Yep.
Constantly changing.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. Oh yeah.